There is this crazy new trend going through social media called rejection therapy. Now, the idea is this, that you have to take a risk, that every day you have got to push yourself out of your comfort zone. The idea being that it actually will produce confidence. Now, some psychologists obviously caution it doesn't work for everyone. But I'd like to share the story of Sophie, a 22-year-old from the UK, and how her story should actually challenge you and I. See, Sophie was so intimidated to share her thoughts, to really truly express herself, and not just at work, not just in public, even among her friends when it came to making plans, never really spoke up because she didn't want to be rejected. She didn't want people to disagree with her. But then she got challenged. And over time, she has pushed herself to continually put herself in uncomfortable situations. And what she's learned is it generally works out pretty well. She found that at work, if she expresses her view and her thoughts on projects, etc., that as opposed to the online world, in reality, people actually don't really want to reject you. They're willing to hear your viewpoint. And in the process, she's grown to the point, as crazy as it may sound, that she stood in the aisle on a fully packed airplane and yelled out, "Have a great flight." And the fact that there was a stunned silence afterwards didn't really impact her. Now, but here's the interesting part. More than how it's built her confidence and opened life up to her is how her story has impacted others. That she has people who are coming to her telling her how her stepping out has challenged them to begin to risk their comfort zone, to step out in their own ways, the ripple effects that it's had. Now, why do I share that story? Well, that's part of being a young warrior, regardless of your age, is actually being bold and chasing after embracing all that God has for us. So often, we fall into this trap of believing God can, but not being convinced that He will. And so often, so many play it safe. And so what happens? We so often have this amazing gospel, this great news. But as Paul said, the gospel is not mere words, but of power. So we get the words, but we so often are missing the power. So I think the challenge for you and I is this. See, we have to recognize, as crazy as it sounds, that God has delegated both the authority and the responsibility to you and I. That how often we deeply desire for God to move, either for ourselves or for someone we care about, a friend, a loved one, whatever it may be. We have this deep desire to see God move. But how often is it that maybe God's saying, "I'm waiting on you"? Now, I've shared this story before, but because it's so incredulous. But they get to the Red Sea, and faith turns to fear. And God actually says to Moses, "Quit crying to me. You raise your staff. You part the Red Sea." And when he did, God moved. They walked through on dry land. And the part of the story we so often forget is they get to the other side, and God says to Moses, "Now you close the Red Sea." And he raised his staff again, and God closed the Red Sea. The point is, how much is waiting on you and I? That God desires to do the amazing, the miraculous, the powerful, to impact people's lives in such ways that we could never see or accomplish on our own. How much is out there waiting that's unfulfilled, waiting for our initiative? That God has delegated the authority, the responsibility, and the initiative to you and I. So how can we take a similar approach? That just like taking a risk, stepping out of our comfort zone, how can we risk looking foolish? That maybe we make a bold proclamation, we pray boldly, we step out and take that risk that God may not answer the way we expected. But the point being is we step out. We begin to grow in that role. That heirs of the kingdom are not those that are waiting, but they're maturing in the process. And the only way to do it is to step out of that comfort zone. And the byproduct that we should expect is just like in Sophie's story, that others would begin to become inspired, that it would be a ripple effect of God's power impacting people because we begin to act on that responsibility and initiative, moving into the authority God has already delegated to us. So start small, but start now. Don't miss out. Don't let any more time go by, but begin now to take that risk. Grow in that favor of the Lord. Grow in that power, that authority as an heir by getting out of our comfort zone. And in the process, watch God work.